This week, Simply Nitin is coming to you from Perth, Western Australia. I'm here to attend the 7th Indian Ocean Conference, the flagship program of India Foundation, an India-based think tank, and the Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade, Government of Australia, along with the Ministry of External Affairs, and support from a Perth-based think tank. So, what does this Indian Ocean Conference do? It brings together countries along the Indian Ocean, which constitute nearly 2 billion people, 34 countries, and the ocean, which is the third largest ocean in the world, is something that binds this region. While it has now become part of what is the larger geopolitical construct called the Indo-Pacific, the primacy of Indian Ocean cannot be denied. And therefore, the deliberations over the last 2 days here in Perth have been fascinating, have been important, because Australia's Indian Ocean capital, Perth, and India actually have the vast expanse of Indian Ocean between them. And like I said, there are between these two ends of, say, Western Australia and Africa, the eastern shores of Africa, there are 40% of the global trade traverses the Indian Ocean. 34 countries, as I mentioned, have the waters of Indian Ocean washing their shores, and $6 trillion of trade actually passes through the Indian Ocean. Only ocean named after a country, as all of you know, the Indian Ocean has 80% of the oil in this region passing through the Indian Ocean. And of course, we cannot forget that the importance of the waterways is underscored by the fact that this ocean joins the Atlantic and the Pacific, and therefore the Indian Ocean Conference. It brought together President of Sri Lanka, Ranil Wickremesinghe, 17 ministers from different countries, heads of delegation or delegations from 40 different countries, not just the Indian Ocean countries, but also countries like Nepal and Bhutan and Bangladesh. All of them came together to discuss and deliberate and carry forward the issue of how to sustain or how to have policies that are sustainable for Indian Ocean that can not just nurture the economies of Indian Ocean, but also make sure that connectivity, climate change, all of these issues get discussed and strategies evolved to overcome some of the problems that beset this area. For instance, there was an interesting thought given out by the delegate from Seychelles. She said, while we are a small island country with just barely survives the rising sea levels and is in the danger of being swallowed up largely by the rising sea levels in the Indian Ocean, we regard ourselves as a large ocean state. We are a small nation, but a large ocean state, because the EEZ, the exclusive economic zone that gives them the control over EEZ because of the location that Seychelles is, or say the Maldives is. That means that the responsibility of smaller nations in this area, in the Indian Ocean, also is equal. And therefore, equitable distribution of wealth, equitable distribution of technology to mitigate climate change threats, everything was discussed in this conference. This is the 7th edition, as I said, of the Indian Ocean Conference. I've been fortunate to attend all of them, all the editions from the beginning since 2016. And the theme this year was to have sustainability in the Indian Ocean. So, how to have sustainable fishing practices to be inculcated amongst the people, how the best practices can be shared, how climate change threats can be mitigated through collaborative efforts. All that was discussed. So, President Ranil Wickremesinghe, of course, gave the keynote address. But India's External Affairs Minister, Dr. S. Jaishankar, and Australia's Foreign Minister, Penny Wong, were the star attractions. And their fireside chat this morning actually laid out the importance of how India-Australia bilateral relations have also contributed to the rising importance of the Indian Ocean. And as I said, while Indo-Pacific is a geopolitical construct which has become fashionable, which has become important of late, Indian Ocean is a civilizational construct. Remember, for millennia, uh, ocean travelers or mariners have traversed from India to the Far East, be it Indonesia, be it Thailand, be it what is now the areas of ASEAN countries. Trade flowed in Indian Ocean. It also went westward and also to Africa. And therefore, the old ties that India has through the Indian Ocean with the countries around the Indian Ocean, whether to its east or to its west, is something that is important for India. And India has now actually started reviving those old links. For years together, for decades, in fact, India turned landwards or inwards and looked at the geography from a land centric vision. But as K.M. Panikkar, one of the historians and India's ambassador to China in the 1950s, had said, those who rule the seas will rule the world. In today's world, of course, multipolarity means not one single nation can rule the world. Of course, it has to be a collaborative effort. Cooperation has to be there on various issues. And therefore, there are these multipolar polar organizations which are already in existence. The IORA, for instance, Indian Ocean Rim Association, the Indian Ocean Naval Symposium, which came into being about 15 years ago, the Indian effort to revive BIMSTEC, and also form the Colombo Security Conclave, has meant that the collaborative efforts have increased. There are now good practices exchanged between the different countries, and the way the Indo-Pacific Oceans Initiative was launched by India, which is a non-treaty based agreement or a kind of arrangement between different countries. That has meant that many small countries are now looking towards India and Australia, which calls itself a middle power, according to their Foreign Minister Penny Wong. They are trying to come up with rules based, free, open, transparent Indian Ocean, and of course, the larger Indo Pacific. So, as you can see, I had to move indoors because of intense heat outside where I started my recording in the beginning of this episode. It is now 41 degrees outside, or maybe even 42 degrees centigrade. And the iPhone in which I'm recording this program actually shut down because of the intense heat. Nevertheless, I'm inside at the venue of the conference. As you can see behind me, the seventh Indian Ocean Conference towards a stable and sustainable Indian Ocean. So, two elements to the conference which I was speaking about. The Australian Foreign Minister Penny Wong, who is the host or a co-host of the conference, actually put it very well that this is such a vast ocean, such a vast area with so many countries that I mentioned earlier being part of this region. Collaborative efforts, cooperation, in various sectors is needed because no one country can provide what the countries in the region need, and therefore the Indian Ocean Conference provides that platform where, like I said, 17 ministers from different countries, 40 delegations from different countries have come here in Perth to attend the conference. And because you had so many speakers, you had the Australian government giving the support, and of course, you had the US Perth Asia Center also providing the software, you can call it, the expertise, because now Perth, as the Indian Ocean capital of Australia, is providing the new impetus for upcoming businesses. It is home to a large deposits of critical minerals. It is also going to be the base for submarines that Australia is going to get under the AUKUS program. And of course, it provides staging ground for collaborative efforts in the Indian Ocean. The multiple subjects and multiple topics on which delegates actually deliberated in multiple sessions. So there was one plenary session, there were two breakout sessions. On first day, there was a dinner engagement where the two foreign ministers, including India's foreign minister, Dr. Jaishankar, spoke about. And everywhere, the theme was, the common thread was that all countries must cooperate on various issues like climate change, resilient supply chains, also mitigation to have sustainable fishing and make sure that the rising temperatures in the Indian Ocean do not create chaos where most of the countries might get into trouble because there are island countries, like I mentioned. So, such is the concern, and such is the focus on Indian Ocean that uh, it is now considered the focal point of international trade. The oil, 80% of oil flows in through the Indian Ocean because the two biggest consumers of petroleum products is, of course, India and China. And remember, the climate change that happens because of the changes in the ocean geography or in the ocean topography uh, leads to several other problems. So therefore, everyone wants to concentrate on finding solutions and finding ways and means to get a sustainable living. So smaller countries are particularly vulnerable, and therefore, Indian Ocean Conference, the seventh edition, like I mentioned earlier, I've been attending all of the editions since beginning in 2016, provide that platform. So experts come. There are people from the academia, from the industry, from, of course, governments and various multilateral forums who come and deliberate, exchange views, network, and therefore India as the big player in this region. Remember, this is the only ocean which is named after a country, and therefore Indian Ocean plays a very vital part, which everyone acknowledges. But since India believes in creating multilateral institutions or doing collaboration uh, with other countries, there are several mechanisms which have come up in the recent days. Some of them have been revived, some of them have been initiated in recent years, and India therefore remains the fulcrum. Australia, although it calls itself a middle power, and as an aside, yesterday when Penny Wong said that Australia is a middle power, this morning Dr. Jaishankar, uh, in a lighter vein, said that, well, Australia is a superpower in cricket, of course, referring to how Australia defeated India in the World Cup final. But the fact is, India and Australia have taken their bilateral relationship to a different level in the past decade or so, and it is only poised to become more intimate, as the Australian High Commissioner to India, Philip Green, told me in an interview very recently that the defense cooperation has now come to a different level than it was, say, even 5 years ago. Bilateral defense cooperation. Of course, India and Australia, Japan, and also US also combine in what they do as called the exercise Malabar. So interoperability, learning from each other, joint ventures, all of them are on the table. But that's the military and the security side. There are other areas of cooperation, other areas of collaboration that all countries in this region are looking for. And as I mentioned, the Indian Ocean provides the connectivity from Australia to Africa. And therefore, this conference becomes an important event in the annual calendar of conferences of think tanks and experts. I'm happy to be here, privileged to be here, in fact, and therefore I thought I'll bring you some updates from here. Do keep watching Strat News Global, and of course, Simply Nitin every Saturday at 7 p.m. That's where you get slightly different perspectives or new initiatives are focused or at least flagged for all of you. So, for the time being, Goodbye from Perth, but I'll see you in Delhi next week.